you guys? Welcome back to the Hot Chai Pod, the podcast where we spill all the very hot Bollywood tea. I'm your host, Jazz, and today we've got a lot of topics to cover. But before that, as usual, let's catch up. So for me, this was a busy week between work and trying to be social. So on the weekend, let's see, on Friday, my best friend and I were so tired that by the time we were hanging out Friday afternoon, we didn't even feel like making the effort, go somewhere chic, be dressed up, you know, and we just went straight up. We straight up went to the Cheesecake Factory and had these gigantic portions. And, he did get bacon on the side, which my dog really appreciated later. And shout out to Cheesecake Factory for making a good espresso martini, though. That's a hidden gem. On Saturday, I then went to this event at the Academy Museum. So, like the Academy Awards, right? The Oscars. So, that museum in Hollywood. And the event was honoring India's film submissions to the Oscars over the years. It's quite a cool museum because there's a lot of like old scripts and movie memorabilia and like posters. The first time I went, there was an entire exhibit dedicated to Spike Lee's films. But anyways, this event in particular, it was exploring the role of music in Lagan, Slumdog Millionaire, and RRR. So all movies that kind of famously went to the Oscars, and RRR winning, Best Song with Natu Natu, which highly deserved. But anyways, this was like a lecture and then a tabla percussion performance accompanied by dancing, classical and modern dancing, to some of the main scores of these films as well as key songs. It was quite well done, and it did remind me because I had seen RRR in theaters and all that, but I kind of forgot how hard Slumdog Millionaire hit when I first watched it, and they had kind of these scenes from the film, and you know, it was quite like gut-wrenching, and I think that's why it resonated so much with the international audience, anyways. On Sunday night, I watched this movie, Teri Baaton Mein Aise Uljha Jiya. I love how I'm saying that as though you don't know. It's the movie with Shahid Kapoor and Kriti Sanon. Well, it's finally on Amazon Prime. I won't spoil it if you haven't seen it, but I mean, even from like the movie trailer, you can see that it's about him falling in love with a robot played by Kriti Sanon. I had some reservations before I watched it, and when it came out, I don't know if maybe I was traveling or it wasn't in a theater close by to me, but it was a hit at the box office, and I can see why. It was a little campy, it was mostly lighthearted, mostly funny, and really exploring the topic of AI in our daily lives. I mean, it's already a part of our lives, and actually, in an interview that I watched yesterday, when both the actors were doing press for the movie, Shahid Kapoor said the same thing. He's like, we have Siri, we're talking to Siri as though Siri sounds like a person, and we have these algorithms, and so much is computerized that 10 years ago we wouldn't have really conceptualized it. And similarly, about a decade ago there was a Black Mirror episode, that weird show, and there was this woman who her boyfriend dies, and in the show there's this episode, and the her boyfriend dies, and he's like backed up his personality and stuff onto the computer. And so there's this company that makes like a robot, but like humanoid version. So it's very similar to what they've done in this movie, but not the same storyline. But anyways, in that episode, it's like she it's like her boyfriend's brought back to life, except it's not because it is a robot and that does manifest in like these really awkward ways. So it's a slight spoiler, but oh well, it's in the trailer, it's in the synopsis, and I recommend watching it. I really enjoyed it. So, getting into our hot chai topics, first up, we need to talk about Ranbir Kapoor and Sai Pallavi's movie. I guess it was called the Ramayana. Now, apparently, it's being called God Power or God's Power. This movie is becoming like the Ramayana itself. There's so many new updates, new twists and turns. Every single day, I feel like I'm reading something about this movie. Last week I mentioned here that the original producers were either bailed or creative differences and left the project. And now there's a host of copyright issues. And that might be contributing to this alleged name change. But I mean, at this point, you have to wonder, like, are they trying to keep the hype alive for this movie just because Ranbir doesn't have any releases until 2025? I feel like there's this daily dose of drama in the marketing strategy, or maybe just his own PR strategy. And I feel like I keep going at that, concept that there are a lot of PR wars or that people are trying to plant stories about themselves. But I think it's important to keep that aspect in mind when we do consume all this media and, it's kind of paying attention to that aspect that like a lot of this is coming directly from, you know, either another camp's PR, the star's own PR person to put these narratives out there. And yeah, we'll discuss that actually later in one of the other topics today. But yeah, that's why I bring it back to that. I'm not trying to just accuse somebody of something. It's kind of playing devil's advocate that, yeah, maybe genuinely there are a lot of stuff, happening with this film and it just feels like it's a lot for a movie that's far away and it's it's so constant. But maybe it's working and look, I'm playing into it. Here I am discussing it again and I really don't even know if I have an interest in the movie now. So maybe it's having the opposite effect. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Now that we're getting a little bit more traction on the old Instagram and the YouTube channel. So hot chai topic number 2. Speaking of drama and creating the drama, our very own Karan Johar, Mr. Kjo, is back in the spotlight this time recently, thanks to Parineeti Chopra's recent press tour. So Parineeti had a few interviews, and notably, Pari was saying that networking at industry parties is basically how these movies get made. She's been pretty candid about her PR team not being as strong as others. So, see, there's an actress actually kind of saying it herself, right? Is that it is a bit of a game and capturing eyeballs and putting yourself out there. But anyways, for Parineeti Chopra to say this, I can't help but think she's throwing shade at Alia Bhatt. Remember that super awkward Coffee with Karan episode? Alia was clearly not feeling it while Parineeti was, gaining traction in the industry. This was quite a while ago. And who has Alia always had in her corner? Well, we all know that's Karan Johar, of course. So while Karan was out promoting his new movie with Rajkumar Rao and Janvi Kapoor, he says, "Oh, I've never offered a movie at a party." Sure, Jan. I mean, you that's such a technicality. It's such like a straw man's way to say, "Well, I've never offered a movie at a party." Yeah, I'm sure you didn't have your contracts and lawyers ready to go to sign a film, but we all know that these industry parties are where the magic or these deals they do happen. I mean, and that's across many industries, where kind of meeting in person and building relationships, it goes a long way. So Raj Kumar, by the way, I think he kind of nailed that aspect because he is quite talented, but he's also smart with his networking. His upcoming film is, under Karan Johar's banner, and it's with Janvi Kapoor, and it's called Mr. and Mrs. Mahi. It's like a sports rom-com, and it's releasing at the end of this month. So I actually am interested in seeing this unexpected pairing on screen. I watched the trailer, and they seem to have some decent chemistry at the jump. So yeah, that'll be something to see. So, in other Karan Johar casting news, he's got Janvi Kapoor and Varun Dhawan in a film with the painfully dumb title Sunny Sanskari Ki Tulsi Kumari. Like, really? After Rakia Rani Ki Prem Kahani, are we just out of creative juices? So, this is the second time Janvi and Varun will be paired together after Baval? Baval, which apparently performed well on Amazon Prime, but didn't have amazing reviews. But hey, I'm excited to see Varun, hopefully in a strong role. We haven't seen Varun, I feel like, in a minute, or maybe we have, but nothing notable. I feel like he's underrated and has this natural screen presence that's just, chef's kiss. Like he really does do well. I think he's very believable in a lot of his characters, whether he's being earnest or he's being kind of angry. A little underrated and I think overshadowed by some of his contemporaries who, maybe chose better roles or just, I don't know, had a little bit more excitement around them. But I feel like he's been struggling a bit since Kalank, and I'm not sure if it's just script choice or maybe a lack of choice, or, doing more films under his dad's banner. I don't know. He had Bedia, which audiences didn't really go for the whole werewolf thing, but, some people actually kind of liked it when they watched it, but I think people just didn't want to go see it in theaters. And Janvi, on the other hand, maybe I need to watch more of her. I'm not convinced she fits into these non-glamorous roles. And I don't know if it's her off-screen persona kind of influencing that perception or if, like, I don't know. And I don't like to say this, it's not like a body shaming thing. But I don't know if I just feel like her face and her body are very glamorous and very dolled up. I don't know how to exactly put my finger on it. It just feels like the difference between maybe a socialite and an actor, and where they're not like blending into every setting, or maybe they're not making the character their own, and you're kind of seeing Janvi on screen instead of, whoever she's playing. But I will judge that after I see this Mr. and Mrs. Mahi movie because Raj Kumar Rao, he's such a strong, trained actor that maybe he might bring out a better side of her acting prowess if she has any. You also can't, create something that's not there sometimes. And funny enough, on the same day that this movie was announced, then there were rumors popping up that Tiger Shroff is working on a lavish Karan Johar film set for 2025. Honestly, this feels like some damage control or image control after last week's news about his films being shelved. Because, last week actually we did speak about this, and I even made a reel that, Tiger is not so bankable. And it has been by far my least watched reel. So that's kind of ironic. But I do think that this is Tiger's way of spinning the narrative because I don't believe that Karan Johar will have this film with Tiger coming out in addition to a couple of the other films that are being announced. And you never know, really, but it's just a little strange. There's no other actor mentioned in the release, there's no director, there's no title. So it just feels kind of like somebody put this out there to seem like there's still traction. And I don't buy it. Not buying what you're selling. So, on another note, my notes for this episode were basically set. And then this morning, I see another announcement for a Dharma Sikya production starring Ayushmann Khurrana and Sara Ali Khan. Now, the timing of this is strange because I was just wondering where Ayushmann has been, and I think, maybe he's not getting enough good opportunities. Personally, I don't know the last film. I didn't watch his Dream Girl 1 or 2, and maybe I should. I really enjoyed Chandigarh Kari Ashiki, a very modern romance, but I know it didn't get a lot of traction. But what's with Sara Ali Khan getting this opportunity? Am I missing something? I think this girl has been given so many chances, and she really is just terrible on screen. And she's not even like a strong dancer. Was there really no other beautiful, talented girl who could have auditioned for this? Or, I don't know, someone from, the artsy movies or a theater school or something. Some of Sarah's fans online were saying that all the outsiders are busy with other projects, so it made sense that it went to Sarah. And I'm not, that's a strange argument. There's no shortage of actors, especially those that we don't know. I mean, India's a big country and everyone's trying to, break into this industry. Speaking of Varun, has Karan Johar worked with him since Kalank? I, finally watched Kalank a couple months ago. I had kind of put it off because so many people said it was just this unmitigated disaster. And I know that it did totally bomb at the box office and with the audience generally. But yeah, I watched it a couple months ago, and the script was really not tight enough. I feel like the story had potential, but they kind of kept dropping the ball on various plots. Also, the entire costuming and set design didn't really make sense for the time period of it was set in pre-partition India. So it just felt kind of like weird. It felt like it was set in like the 1800s or something. But the songs were obviously fantastic if anyone's listened. And I do think that Varun Dhawan did a great job for what he was given to work with. I know that they were trying to make Alia the star of that film, and many say that it was Karan Johar's way of helping her have like a screen test for like a Sanjay Leela Bhansali film. That's why they had her in this like ethereal mode and trying, and I say trying because I mean literally trying to do Kathak and not doing it well, doing it really in a scary fashion. But she was kind of the star of the film, but I think that Varun Dhawan actually was the star for me. And Aditya Roy Kapoor was also in there, and many people find him to be a very stiff actor, and I think I could partially agree, and I think that, on the other hand, that does work for him in certain roles. So I guess speaking of that, I finally binged The Night Manager on Hulu, Disney, Hotstar, whatever you want to call it. But I finally watched it, and if anyone didn't know, The Night Manager was an adaptation of a English show with the same name, based on a French crime novel. So I actually watched all 7 episodes in a couple days. As you can tell, I was pretty lazy over the weekend. But no, I actually watched it all while I should have been asleep. But I really found it gripping, and I was so into it, and I was just so awake while I was watching. I just could not turn it off. I had to know what would happen next because it was done pretty well that I didn't really know where the story was headed or what the characters would do because it was unpredictable. And So in that sense, it truly was like a thriller where you're like, oh my God, what's gonna happen next? And is this character gonna die? Or, I don't know. I really liked it. I may watch the original to compare because the story was adapted to be Indian focused, so I'd be curious what the original was. Um, Sobita was gorgeous in it, of course, though she was creepily paired with Anil Kapoor. Very jarring to see them together, but it did make sense for the storyline because he's playing a very powerful, rich guy, which he played perfectly. And Aditya Roy Kapoor could have been a bit more intense in the role, I think. That would be my criticism. But it also demanded this air of mystery, and that I think he did well, because from scene to scene, you really couldn't tell what he was thinking or his next action, and that lent itself quite well to it feeling like a real, like I said, thriller. Um, to that point, I'd like to see ARK and Sobita in a proper film because I feel like they had a lot of chemistry and they look super hot together. So yeah, somebody make that happen.
And speaking of Sobita, let's talk about the Cannes Film Festival this year. So, Sobita, Kiara Advani, and our eternal queen, Aishwarya Rai Bachchan, graced Cannes this year for various events and various kind of partnerships. There were a few other daisies there as well, but I didn't super see the connection for some of them, so I'm just gonna talk about these three ladies. Um, so Kiara was there to represent as part of the Women in Cinema Gala hosted by the Red Sea Foundation. She also attended a Vanity Fair gala, and she wore gowns for all three events that she attended. So no sorry. Say one of her outfits, she had this orange gown on, and she looked super just kind of like washed out between kind of that shade of orange and like this like very natural looking makeup. And I just think, for girls like her and Alia, you got to make one feature kind of stand out with the makeup.
Wipe that off. Wipe that off.
Like, obviously Kiara's just stunning and her body's amazing, but it just kind of, I don't know, just she just like was almost like you couldn't tell it was her walking. Sobita also attended as a brand ambassador for Magnum, the ice cream bars, and she wore a gold gown for one event and this kind of purple Sharara fusion outfit of sorts for the second. Or maybe it was in reverse, but she looked good. Did she super bring it? I don't know. I think she could have done better. She's literally so beautiful to me, so I just think she should play that up a little bit more. But, all of this kind of pales in comparison to the Queen of Beauty herself, Aishwarya. So, per usual, she was there with her longtime partnership with L'Oreal as their ambassador, and she was dressed by Falguni Shane Peacock for both times that she walked the red carpet. And yes, she can make kind of anything look beautiful because, let's face it, her face card, it doesn't decline. But that being said, these two men created some real travesties for her to wear. And she may have had some input as the celebrity, of course, and it's her wearing it, but the responsibility really rests on these two, Falguni and Shane, and her stylist. The first outfit was really disjointed and busy, and it had these white puffy sleeves and this gold detailing on this kind of, I don't know, poofy-ish black gown, and just the material, not the gown itself. But it wasn't the worst, but it wasn't great. And I was hopeful for the next day, and then I didn't realize how good we had it. The next day, they dressed her as a human pinata, birthday decoration tinsel. Like, it was insane. Like, she still looked beautiful, which is crazy. She looked beautiful. It's like the tinsel that you buy to hang, in a room when you're having a birthday party or New Year's party. And it was just so much of it, and in a really kind of drastic design. And so it's pretty impressive that she would still look nice, because if I put that dress on, somebody would have actually come up to me and started beating me with a baseball bat and thinking that some candy is gonna fall out. No lie, because I would have actually looked like a crazy person wearing that dress. And it's telling. She still looks great, but they don't need to dress her in that. And she, she can wear anything. She has access to any designer. So I'd love to see her put some Armani back on, because I don't know if these Indian designers are doing her justice. And finally, let's have our teacup time. So today we have a couple comments, from the past week about last week's episode and other happenings. So most of you said that somebody not showering would be a deal breaker for you. So that was in reference to Aditya Roy Kapoor and him showering every 3 days. And some people, though, said they have the same habits and they were really offended that this was being discussed in a negative way. So I hope the daily showerers and the non-dailies, they each find a partner within their own clan. I don't know if we should be inter-hygiene mixing, if that makes sense. And another DM that I received is that there's been additional rumors about Ranveer's films being shelved. But then, hours later, another article states the opposite, that no, the movie's still very much on. And I really can't tell if this is like a PR game, or, if it's someone trying to play dirty, or if, he's legitimately having issues with casting and fees because of these, reduced production budgets that were kind of discussed. And is he charging too much? I don't actually know, and I would be curious to kind of get to the meat and potatoes of it. And I feel like somebody will spill soon if that is the case. But if it's not, I really can't tell what is happening and what isn't. But yeah, thank you for DMing me. I love to have this be more of a conversation. And that reminds me, if you don't follow the podcast on Instagram and YouTube, go ahead and do that. The handle is @hotchaipod. And I post a lot of videos there. And yeah, let's have some fun discussing all this. And with that, I will see you all next week.